Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And oh my goodness, I was in the inside today. And, I can blame it sometimes, in a busy day, a day that, little issues just get piled up like that. But in all honesty, I had a great day today. I listed a garden pot today, and it's my biggest listing that I've ever done personally. I've listed it for $1,000. I was going to list it for 500, but I thought, it's not the everyday person who's going to want a $500 garden pot. It's going to be somebody who has a very expensive hobby, like growing bonsai trees, right? Or somebody who's just wealthy in all reasoning. You know what I mean? That it's those people who are going to be looking at my garden pot, and for them $1,000 might be just pocket change. And I recognize that, and I know the value in that garden pot. I researched it very well. I'm excited. There is a market for it. There is another one in the States, none in Canada, but there's one for sale in the States that's almost like mine. It's square rather than mine is hawks six-sided, is six-sided. Um, but they were asking $1,200 for theirs. And even though it's not exactly the same as mine, it's very, very similar. Same glazing, same blossom trees, probably not done as well as mine is. But I thought, you know what? He's got 25 watchers. It was eBay, right? He's got 25 watchers on that garden pot, right? So there's a market for that garden pot. So I decided, you know what, Cindy, right? You're not a garage sale. You're not just selling things to get rid of them. You're selling things to make profit. That $1,000 that you listed that garden pot at it, I listed that garden pot for $1,000, and I did a very good job in the listing, in the researching of it, even in the historical aspects of the glazing and the artisans, and I'm confident that I'm going to sell that garden pot. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not for a couple of months, but I think I am optimistic. I will sell that garden pot. Okay. In that, I'm getting knocks on the door, and I'm trying to get some jewelry listed too. I know if I keep listing, then that algorithm will give me more views, not necessarily for that item, that jewelry that I'm listing, but in general, right? They'll give me some views, and more eyeballs on that garden pot, the better. Because if I sell that garden pot, I'll only be a few $100s short of being able to rent a luxury vehicle for a few weeks. I want to go away for 3 weeks this September. And I'm not being slow in raising and bringing in money. But, in the situation that I'm in right now, I am not applying all that money that's coming in as savings for my trip. I'm using it to put the roof over my head and groceries in the cupboard. And, I gave that a little bit of thought today, like, oh my goodness, we're going into spring, and right, I've only got a couple $100s put away. My trip is going to cost me $3,000. I might maybe a little bit more, right? If I'm going for 3 weeks, just my camping spots are going to cost me $1,000. But I'm going to try and do that with my income tax return, right? As well as get my new glasses. So you guys, right? I will be more comfortable, right? I purposely show up knowing I really can't cry over the spilt milk of not having, right, reflective coating on my glasses. It all peeled off, if you guys don't know. And I have to be here. It's part of me now to show up every single day. But I don't, right? I'm not particularly happy about having the Morse code. At least I hope there's a message, something positive coming out of that. The reflective coating not being there. And you can see I'm creating my neck so that, it's not really interfering. But at the same time, I'm conscious of that, right? I'm conscious of having that reflective going on. And, just little irritants, just little irritants. And you guys have heard me say today, today, that you guys have heard me say lots of times, once you go into a negative state, whether it's sad, whether it's angry or mad, whether you're depressed, right? Whether you're really, really worried, if you don't whistle while you work, if you don't realize it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? If you don't smile when you feel like crying, if you don't help others in order to help yourself feel good. Hello, Earl. Hello, Tammy. Oh, and Eugene's here too. Hello, everybody. But if you leave yourself in that state, you are leaving yourself open for negative. You're not leaving yourself open for the good and the light and the happy because they don't want to come near it, right? But the negative will gobble that up like popcorn and make a bad situation worse, right? Maybe make a sad situation or worrisome like an illness go on for long periods of time. And people, I don't know why people don't recognize that. I run in networks that truly believe it. I'm just going to turn that down for a moment. Um, uh, I run with networks that, they say that you have to pretend until it's true, right? And in some aspects, that really is true. Because, like I said, if you leave yourself open to the negative, the only thing that can come in is negative. And sometimes, oh my goodness, I was there myself. I was meant to stay in that negative state my entire life so I would not wake up to some of these ideas. I am so grateful that in my joy and happiness in having fun and doing what I love, that I left myself in a state where I was positive. So more good can come into my life. Now, right? Today, those little ticks and those little irritants were happening. And like I said, it was a very good day today. And to think that I listed a garden pot that I paid for $6.99 for, I listed it for $1,000. I was just super thrilled. But in doing that, which because I was doing a good job and because I was doing the research and right and being interrupted in what I was trying to do. And at the same time, I'm thinking about, oh my goodness, you need to go to the store. You need to spend more money, right? You're supposed to be saving, Cindy. See, I just leave myself. And those are just little things. People have really, really big things irritating them, bringing them down, making them feel sad, making them feel depressed and oh my goodness, life is over, right? And like I said, you have to sing in the rain. You have to whistle while you work. You have to realize it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Sometimes you have to, right? Smile when you feel like crying. And that's the truth. A lady phoned me, or didn't phone me, but she messaged me on some jewelry, and I just kind of cranked out on her in messaging, right? I just said, she was looking just to pluck something out of a group lot. And I told her before, no, I'm not doing that because I put a lot of work into putting that listing together. And I'm not just plucking something out here and something out there. And she messaged me back today and she says, oh, those moon earrings still in that lot? Well, before messaging me, why don't you go in and check the pictures to see if they're still in there? And then I'm going, moon earrings. If there were moonstone earrings, and if there were a pair, I would have plucked them out. So I went in, not for her benefit, for my own, just to make sure that there wasn't a nice pair of sterling silver earrings with moonstones in there. And it was just one earring. It wasn't even a pair. So I just said, I have a pair of moonstone earrings listed. If you would like to go back, right, and check out my listing, but I'm not breaking up this lot. And it wasn't just her, because lots of times that person gets it for the 20 other people that want to pluck something out of a pile, or say, I put a plate silver lot up of different jewelry, but it's just silver plated, right? And they're messaging me, is there a mark on this? Is there sterling silver? Is this 925? And I'm saying, you know what? If I spot 925, right, or sterling silver in this lot, like you're asking me to do, I am plucking it right out of that group, because the group in the ad says plate silver lot, just so I could just move it along really fast. So I got irritated in that. And I didn't catch that, right? I didn't catch that in the very least. And so I said, okay, Cindy, you need to get outside for a few minutes. Just go get those couple of pieces of groceries, like the cheese I need for my naan bread and stuff, right? Go get it and get some fresh air. And I walked and I contemplated on that. For those of you who came in yesterday, we got the word acceptance for the gazillionth time. Let me just check the comments. Tammy, Cindy, I understand you. For me, it's acceptance, which I have for a long time accepted this. I have some bad teeth. It's in my DNA from my late parents. I don't like it, but it's my life, right? But also at the same time, if you have those teeth issues, we live in a world now of innovation. And yes, right, we understand dental is difficult and it's very expensive. But in our choices, if we say, okay, it might take 2 years or 3 years, but I could put $10 a week away for that, right? And then go see your doctor or your dentist and have the procedures done with that, right? Same with myself. So many things that I could do for myself, but sometimes, we think that, oh my goodness, you can't save money, Cindy, for your trip. You just keep wanting to spend, spend, spend. But I need these things. And then I think about the things that I purchased. Did I need that container of yogurt? No, I didn't, right? Did I need that diet pop? No, you've been doing so good, Cindy, drinking apple juice and juice crystals. Like, you didn't need that. But these are little treats that we give ourselves, right? To make ourselves feel better, right? To make ourselves feel better when we feel blah or irritated. So I went for this walk And the first thing I come out the door and I'm thinking about acceptance. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I haven't had a day like this for a long time. And in truth, right, I'm making it sound a lot bigger than it was, right? Right? I just felt guilt and shame that I kind of cranked at that lady in the messages. And it wasn't even really cranking, but being the person that I am, right? The guilt and shame surfaces right away. I didn't have to be short. Go take a look at the pictures, right? I could have done that for her, but I was in the middle of other things. I walked out the door and I went, you know what? There's no reason for me to feel bad about my conversations and my messagings. I'm usually very polite. I get good reviews. I'm normally a very social person. Yes, she got on my last nerve. I'm fortunate, right? She got it for probably the 20 people who were asking me to look for markings on silver and stuff. And right, I was agitated by that, and so right. And plus I'm agitated because I have to go and spend money when I want to save money. I don't even think, oh my goodness, Cindy, so good, high five, you getting $1,000 for that garden pot, good score. And instead of feeling good about myself, I left myself open. As soon as I walked out the door, I just went, oh, right. It's a mild day today, only -8 Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's not cold. It was a lovely evening. I walked to the store, but in walking to the store, this word, Tammy, acceptance, right? Accepting the state that we're in, accepting our limitations, accepting what we can and cannot do. You guys know I talk about baby steps all the time, even for myself, right? Just to put a few dollars aside. How hard would that be for me? I'm not giving myself heck about that. But it was my idea of acceptance. And so I went back into the word acceptance that we got, like I said, for the gazillionth time yesterday, right? And I thought about the lesson. I watched my live over again last night, and I do almost every single live show I go in because I know those lessons are for me too. But I remembered, that word acceptance, and I was trying to look at the perspective, and I was saying, that word comes up again. How am I going to go at it? Because obviously I'm not getting it right. Otherwise, it wouldn't keep showing up. And I went, oh my goodness, every time I go into the word acceptance, I'm using myself as the example. I'm using my experiences as an example. I'm using my guilt and shame and limitations as the example. But I'm supposed to be the example for out there, right? I'm not supposed to beat on myself. I'm not supposed to think just because this word acceptance shows up once or twice a week and I've got 54 powerful words that I've never ever pulled from the deck. And I'm just going to pull the deck just so I can shuffle them as I'm yapping at you guys, right? And then I thought, oh my goodness, when I looked at that card, and we said acceptance, and underneath I wrote, acceptance is understanding that we don't have all the answers. Okay, so let's go back to that. And it's true. And it hit me upside the head without using my experience, right? I'm going to use my father's experience. Now, I went to the grocery store, came home. I had to quickly have dinner because you guys know I don't eat after 8 o'clock at night. So I had to have it done by 8 o'clock. So I didn't really get a chance to really go through a dream, that I thought my father said to me when he passed away. Now I've woken up to some different ideas, and I understand it's a possibility that those other parts of me, right, instigated that dream. I've only got two things in my life that go back to when I was oh my goodness, going back any distance. One is a compass I gave to my dad for Christmas when I was 12 years old. The second thing I have is this dream that I wrote down um, when my father died. It was a few months after my father died. My father died in 1984, and I've been dragging this along with me all that time. I slept for almost 24 hours that day, and which is incredibly, I've never done that in my entire life, and I have never done that since, but I did it. And when I woke up, my dream was like a movie, like I could see it so clearly. And I went into a frenzy to write it down. And when I was done, I went like this, right? And I'm sure I didn't get it all because it dissipated over time. Whatever I could write down, I could see it like that same movie, right? When I talk about it, I'm seeing the scene of it and everything clearly. If I hadn't written it down, I doubt if I would have even remembered it. But at the end of this dream, I right, and I wasn't woke to any of these ideas, right? But I was determined that my dad had sent it to me as a message, right? A way to say goodbye, maybe a way to explain life a little bit, explain what went wrong or what went right. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I will read the last page. Not tonight because I didn't have time to delve into the conversation that I want to have in this respect to somebody else's experience, right? Or I'm going to say misunderstanding. And it's a biggie, you guys, because I recognize an untruth, like a total untruth. But I didn't recognize this until maybe a half a dozen years ago because I wasn't woke to any of those ideas at that time. It was just a bunch of jibber jabber. It was, right? It was kind of, I don't know. It was a dream, but I had dreams all the time back then and only as of recently started to dream again. But I was never a big dreamer, and it was odd to me. And because I was so heartbroken and in grief, right? And even though it didn't show on the outside, in the inside I was broken. I was devastated. I was in a negative state, right? That would only allow the negative to come in. And in understanding that now, right? Maybe it wasn't my dad who sent me the dream. Maybe it was those other parts of me. Maybe it was whoever or whatever. I'm not a dream interpreter, but I have pulled out this dream, I would say once every 6 months for the past half a dozen years or so, maybe a little bit longer. Anytime that I brought it out prior to that, right? It was just a little memory of my father, and I would read it. I wouldn't understand any of it except for the characters that were in it. But every time in the past half a dozen years or so that I brought it out, I get something from it. Like something hits me up, like side the head, like a big red brick, and it wakes me up. And when I went to that store, I went, oh my goodness, the acceptance is to say, right underneath that word, it said, you know, acceptance is understanding that we don't have all the answers. And it was in reference to my father, who thought a certain way, that believed a certain way, that epigenetically it was just something that was passed down. Maybe we'll just get into it and I'll read it to you, right? I'm already in it now, so we're just going to let, right, the flow happen in that my father had made a mistake in his way of thinking, in his humanness, right? And my dad was woke to these ideas, right? But he made a mistake. His father made a mistake. And it was for me to pick up the little nuances, to pick up the mistake, to pick up the misunderstanding. And today it hit me just walking home like an hour ago. That's why I said I'd like to just kind of, right, delve into it a little bit before I come in and present it. But I think I'm getting the gist of it. So I will read you the last page of this. Well, it's about a page, but it's half and half of the last page. And it was where he made his mistake. And this is important, right? Because I get that people probably don't get me, right? I am a human having a spiritual experience, right? And they say it the opposite way. But I move in those ideas, but I don't live that way. I only feel into it, right? I don't know, in those understandings, in those other parts of me, right? That I get the lesson somehow if I am not in a negative state, right? The right I If I'm in a negative state, then nothing comes to me. And I am moving forward. That's why I always say baby steps, no matter how small, put $10 away, right? No matter how you feel, get out there and go for a walk, right? No matter how you're hurting in the inside, you can smile, if for nothing else, then for somebody else. In that small way, you make yourself feel good because you're doing service for somebody else. But lots of people don't recognize the humanness in us, right? We are tools. We are servants. We are sometimes slaves. We are sometimes the scapegoat, right? Sometimes we're just something to utilize. Sometimes people perceive that you just show up to serve them, right? And it's not true. It is a falsehood in understanding. And I think because, I'm here to be the example in my own humanness, right? To be able to get it, to be able to understand it, to be able to see the dark and the light, and to recognize souls that, you know, you guys heard me say when I go on these trips and I go into a coffee shop or something, and I'll turn around and somebody will be staring at me, right? And I'm not looking at them physically, but somehow there's a recognition in me. And I'll quite often say, have we met before? Like I'm in a totally different province, some little small town in somethingville, right? Like there's no reason for me to recognize them, but something in me recognizes them, right? And and they always go, oh no, no. And I could just tell in the way that they're saying no, that they're actually saying yes. And I'm thinking to myself, how do you know me? But they're not going to give me that information, right? And these are traits that I've had all my life. But to be able to express them, people would just look at me side-eye or cross-eyed or right, look at me like I'm strange and don't know what I'm talking about. But being the evidence here for somebody who does recognize what I'm talking about, it's important. And so I said, oh, tomorrow, this way I can research and figure out how I can present it and stuff, right? Because I like to baby spoon it because a lot of this is kind of heavy and kind of, like I said, the red brick upside the head, right? And but we're in it, so we're just gonna do it because, right, I'm compelled, we'll just put it that way, to do it. Okay, so this is a little school scribbler. This is the book that I wrote down the dream. I'm just going to read you a half a page off one page and then the little bit of paragraph on the next page, but it's something that's, I think, very, very important for people that are like me but not like me to really understand that the human does matter, right? This word synthesis we also got this week, the amalgamation of different to make up a whole, right? And people are so easy or so eager to write off the human as something to utilize and, right, really not something to partner up or, right, assimilate, amalgamate, right, to take into consideration in any way. Okay, let's just come in here. I just want to go before I read this, right? We won't lose track where we are. Okay. But at the same time, I accept it. I have to get them out. It's hard to accept it, but it's my acceptance that stops you, right? That stops you and keeps you feeling bad about it, right? So you either accept it wholly and smile with all the issues, right? And just say, screw it. This is me, right? I don't care what somebody thinks. But, right, if you're a highly sensitive, if you're an empathic, you care what other people think of you. So you, right, it's why I lost that weight. And if you guys just started hanging out with me, you know I got myself up to 311 pounds. I was an emotional, defeated wreck in my life. And, right, it was the first time I was able to get into the positive, and my whole life bloomed. And I've told some of those stories, and I will continue to tell some of those stories. And it is proof, right? To just smile, just to be as positive as you possibly can. And sometimes, in learning to treat yourself well, to care for yourself, to think well of yourself. And it was something my father taught me, right? Confidence, individuality, resilience, right? And kindness. And sometimes we learn these lessons in a way that it's not supposed to be learned, but the lesson is learned. But if somebody wakes up to the lessons that it should have been done in, well, there's accountability in that, isn't there? Okay, so let's go into that one part here and I'll read it to you. Now, keep in mind, I was writing as fast as I could because, right, the dream was dissipating. Also, keep in mind, I didn't understand any of it. Like I said, I only understood the characters. And I could have read this 1,000 times before half a dozen years ago, and I would have been just blank. I wouldn't have understood it in any way. But like I said, I pull it out every 6 months. And as I move forward in my lessons, I get to understand it a little bit better, a lot better in some pages here. Okay, so let me read this. Something about this part of my dreaming sticks in my mind. Throughout writing down this memo of dreams, I kept wanting to write this down, but I held off until the end because it didn't seem to fit in with any of this. But somehow I know that it's very important. It starts off up in the rocky cliffs. My grandfather, who is at the same time my father, is sitting on a boulder, and at his feet is the decayed corpse of a person. I don't know who. The jaw is protruding on the corpse, so it's like his mouth is gaping open. Okay. Like I would have been clueless. I get it, right? I get it. Now, those cliffs and those mountains, I had never been to Arizona, right? And until recently, when I started following a thought leader that I do appreciate, and he'd go on walking tours and meditation and stuff, and he would go up into these cliffs. And at one time, he showed the view in front of him, and I recognized it was those red, hilly, soft sanded down from the sand and stuff. It was that area in Arizona. My father, who is also my grandfather, now you guys hear me talk about epigenetics all the time, right? So this is the same example, passing one thing down to your child, and that child passes it to his kid and his kid, right? My father, who is also my grandfather, has a bag of whole peanuts. I don't know. Okay, this is what it was. It was a dream. My father, who is also my grandfather, has a bag of whole peanuts, and he is eating them. And every so often, he drops one in the gaping mouth of the corpse, who's lying on its belly with its head propped up on a rock. My father and grandfather are laughing, letting me know there is nothing to the body. It's dead, right? There's no soul. It's just a corpse. No, that was just a human. And this is where my grandfather and my father got it wrong. Epigenetically, right? If you weren't woke to any ideas, then you were something to utilize. You were a human. You were beneath them. This world was made for them. And this is how I understand this now, is the fact that my parents, that their parents and their parents didn't recognize that none of this can happen without the human. Well, possibly it could. If the humans weren't here, then I would suspect that the whoever, whatever, would utilize the octopus or the blue whale, which happens to be some of the smartest animals in the world, or the elephant, which is another smart one. But I don't want to come back as an octopus and be king of the ocean. How much fun would that be? And who am I to assume that that's in whoever, whatever, God's plan, right? Those other parts of me plan. And that idea is possibly that those other parts of me created that 24-hour dream. I never slept 24 hours in a day. In my entire life, I have never done anything like that. And it was odd just in that. And in having that dream, and not even being woke. What would get to me to say, oh, goodness, Cindy, you need to write this all down? Right? I'm not even well, I can't say I'm not a great writer. Oh, I'm okay. I could say I'm not a great writer. I might be an okay writer. How's that? But it was in my understanding, and I knew this quite a while ago. I knew this a couple of years ago that's where my dad got it wrong, right? And in him not protecting me, right? Right? I thought he was that he was allowing those dynamic relationships to hurt me and just standing to the side and allowing it to happen. And I held that against my father. But my father didn't know I was going to wake up to some of these ideas. Oh my goodness, he would be so thrilled. And I can't imagine how many amazing conversations that we could have sat and we could have hashed out, right? If I had happened to wake up to some of those ideas at the same time that he did, right? He woke up a little bit different, right? But I recognized it. And I don't think possibly that I might have not woken up to some of these ideas if I didn't recognize it in others, right? And this is important, for people who think that they can just do whatever, right? To the people that they come in contact, whether it's through this because we're all negative, right? That's why they call it karma. You pay for that, right? And God forbid, right, that my mother ends up in some uncontacted village in the Amazon for the next 1,000 years to pay back the karma, right? In what she thought was okay, because, right, that's just Cindy. She don't count. And I have to say, no, not today. I won't say that today. That's a lesson for another day. That's a lesson I really do need to hash over. So treat yourself well, right? If you want something, if it's an outfit, if you want to go for a walk, if you want to say no and not feel guilt and shame for that. I know that's a big one when you've been a caregiver, or you're highly sensitive, or you're empathic, or you were brought up to serve others, right? It's hard. We feel bad saying no. I don't say no very often, but I do have to learn to say no, because if I don't, then I'm going to get dragged under. And that was the lesson for me today in this word acceptance that keeps popping up in the cards, right? But I believe it keeps popping up in the cards is because I just don't get the gumption. I didn't have the guts or the bravery or the courage to actually allow myself, right, to kind of express how I feel, or to feel bad that I'm disrespecting my father and the lessons that he passed down that he thought was true. And right, and it could possibly be the downfall, right, of our lineage, of, right, epigenetically what we keep passing down lifetime after lifetime, right? It's important for each one of us, if you understand what I'm talking about, to be the example for others. Not necessarily that they're going to wake up. Maybe they had a hard time in the past lifetime, and this lifetime was meant for them to recoup, right? To get better because they went through some heavy stuff. Maybe they were in that, what is that? There was that war movie with the 300 Roman soldiers. I can't remember the name of the movie, right? You see devastating things, right? The Second World War, the First World War, or starvation in a third world country, that people go through terrible, terrible things. And do you think that they're just going to pop up lifetime after lifetime? If they do, they're just going to compound the problems that they have, right? That possibly my father, who might have had these ideas and stood backward to the sidelines and allowed things to happen, had those examples in his life that possibly moving forward he's controlling. And if he doesn't get control of that control, right, then maybe he becomes negative. And if he becomes negative, that control could possibly turn into something even worse, like narcissism, right? And it doesn't mean that narcissism is going to keep showing up. It's in the experiences, right? I don't believe in reincarnation literally, like Cindy's never coming back. But I believe like we pass things down and, right, it's in our systems. And we don't need and we don't want broken systems, and we don't want to come back as one-celled amoebas and start all over again, do we? Right, we don't want to be doing that. And so we have to treat ourselves well. And not only do we have to treat ourselves well, we have to be that example for others, because kindness, right, just holding a door is not necessarily just for the person that you're holding the door for, but it's the person standing beside you who's watching you hold the door for somebody else, because you're the example for everybody and everyone that you surround yourself with, right? We matter. And if you have to say no, you say no, right? And if you have to do baby steps like I do, you do baby steps, because baby steps is okay. We all think that, right? Without jumping into it immediately, that things are going to fall apart without us, but that's not true. It's probably more devastating if you jump into things and you don't know what you're talking about and you don't know what you're doing, and people can see that. And what kind of example is that for anybody, right? And the pride in being able, right, to drum up the courage or to come up with the $10 a week, or to get outside when you know you should be outside, and to smarten up when you notice, right, that things are irritating you, or you make somebody else pay because they got on your last nerve, and so they have to pay for the 10 people who got on the nerves before her, right? Okay, you guys. Let's get into a word. It better not be that word acceptance or community, you guys. I am optimistic, but I just wanted to put it that way. This kind of is like my experience because it was my dream, but I knew it to be true a couple of years ago, and I don't really talk about it enough, right? I know lots of people are under the misconception that humans don't count, that, right, that they be perfectly fine. They're just a suit of clothes, right? Just to use and abuse. And when it's over and done with, well, just pull out your peanuts and. But that's not true. We have to honor that. It's right. We have to honor that. And, right, acceptance. Acceptance is understanding that we don't have all the answers, right? And yeah, so we did acceptance again today. But we're going to pull a card, and I'm just going to turn my head, right? Because if that word acceptance or community pops up again, oh my goodness, right? I did the best that I could today. It was kind of spur of the moment. Like I said, I was going to just kind of hash over how I wanted to present it, but I think it's always best just to be genuine And when the thought hits you, right, you got to bring it to the table, right? Because if you just hold it in, it just kind of rots in your gut, rots in your heart, rots in your mind. Okay, let's go into the comments here for a minute before, oh my goodness, chatty chatties. I don't know how far. Uh, oh my goodness, you guys. I'm still rolling up there. Okay, let's start with Eugene's comment here. Um, oh, Earl's comment. Okay, let's go back to Earl. Do 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 do. I cry sometimes. You know what? It's a great way to release the negative, right? When you have a good cry, don't you feel better? Don't you feel? I know I feel better when I have a good cry. I haven't had a good cry in well, I'm not going to say a very long time because I'm just getting over the loss of my best friend, which was my cat, right? So I have little tears in that sometimes, but I haven't allowed myself to have a really good cry. I just kind of go, smarten up, Cindy, pull up your pants, brush off your knees, right? Get back to it. But I allow myself that pain. And I think it's absolutely beautiful that I can allow myself to hurt that way, realizing, right, I'm not going to fall apart. I'm not going to have a nervous breakdown in that. And it proves that, I cared for something more than I cared for myself, right? And we all know humans. Humans, we are very attentive for the most part to how we feel and not so much about how other people feel. But that could also be a tool, right? It can also, when you're feeling bad, to do something nice for somebody else, right? That can just smooth over a little bit of that sadness or irritability or that anger or that frustration. And even the fresh air, like if you can't get outside, just opening up a window. I got a window open up here. It's like, right, it's in the minuses, the temperature's dropping pretty fast, but that cold air, right, it feels so good. And when you can't get outside, you adapt, you conquer, you do the best that you can. You can go into YouTube and watch Mother Nature documentaries. I do it all the time. Okay, you guys. Uh, oh, I got that one, so we can go down a little bit further. Uh, it is scary, but 2 years ago, I was scared of uh, cataracts surgery, and it turned out to be easy. You know what? It is, lots of times we put a lot of fear into something we can't do. And a prime example, I'm going to just use my sister in that, right? It wasn't easy, but it wasn't as bad as she thought it was. And it brought positivity into her life. A little bit. She's still depressed because it was a serious operation. She had a triple heart bypass, my sister. And even the night before the operation, she was looking for excuses to cancel out on this operation. She'd been waiting for so long. She had gone code blue at least a half a dozen times, and doctors and innovation brought her back, right? And she actually was almost willing to say goodbye rather than go through that operation. And it wasn't the only operation. She had to have an operation on her stomach, and now she's dealing with her eyes and stuff. But she had that triple heart bypass. And she says she doesn't care. She hates hospitals. She's so afraid of hospitals. But she says now that because of that operation, she can go through anything. When she has to do her surgeries, when she has to take care of herself, she's no longer afraid of the doctor. She's no longer looking for ways to get out of her appointments, right? I don't like the idea of her being wrapped up in the medical system. Lots of us, we get wrapped up in that, right? And but sometimes you need it, right? My sister wouldn't be here right now without that operation. So sometimes positive comes from negatives, and you have to remember that somehow she pulled herself out of that negative. But when you get smacked with one thing after another, right? It's hard to be cheery. It's hard to be singing in the rain, and right? It was the best of times, it was worst of times. Whistle while you work, right? You just want to go, rah, 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 rah. Right? But if you recognize you can't do that because you just get more of the same. And then what happens? Right? The good doesn't want to come around, right? And if they do want to come around, they're just going to utilize you, right? You're already miserable already. They'll just gobble up that negativity like it's popcorn. And they'll enjoy it too. And you won't, right? And you won't move in that. It's in our choices, right? It's in our choices. And yeah, I can see how that is. And I can imagine you trying to talk yourself out of that cataract surgery, right? I just imagine how scared. I wouldn't want to have eye surgery, right? My sister is getting needles in her eyes because she has diabetes, and she's got to get needles in her eye to drain the fluid. Like, oh, I could, right? But I would do it if I have to. But I can imagine how bad I would feel till I got up to that point. But because she had that triple heart bypass, she doesn't care. She's been through the worst of the worst. Nothing could be as worse than that triple heart bypass. And she flew through it. She was the most proactive patient that hospital ever saw. She was out of the hospital in just a few days. The doctors were absolutely amazed, but I think a lot of it was just that I got to get out of here, right? Like, and she just made herself better. She's a tough cookie. You wait until she wakes up. We're all in for it. Okay. But yeah, that's amazing, Earl, right? And like you said, you got through it, and it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. It probably wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. And I bet you appreciate being able to see again, right? Oh my goodness. And that's a procedure they wouldn't have had 150 years ago in innovation, even though it's kind of crappy now, crappy in my dad's age, crappy in my grandfather's age. I seem to be doing okay. And my nieces and nephews, they're going to be doing even better. And a lot of those limiting beliefs, a lot of those problems that our family had in making some movement, in being better human beings, right? Recognizing the humanness in them and the humanness in their own children, right? That can only be a good thing. Things are getting so much better. Um, Tammy says, I hear you, Earl. I have had 3 of my relatives that had cataract surgery done too. I helped them all through it. One was my late mother, another person was my brother-in-law, and who I took care of for 12 years, right? I lots of caregivers, and Tammy has been Tammy's the queen of caregivers. She has cared for a lot of family members and strangers too. Okay. My left eye and right eye surgeries were a total success. Oh, congratulations. And not just congratulations on being able to see, but congratulations for, you know, making sure that everybody understood that you mattered, that you understood that you mattered, and that you had that operation, even though it was probably not a good thing. I use eye centers of Texas. Okay, Tabby says, that's awesome, Earl. I don't even have to wear glasses. Amazing. In another month, I'll have a proper pair of glasses. I may even get back into my contacts because remember what I said about innovation, that things are always changing. And I stopped wearing contact lenses when I was 42, 43 years old because as you go into middle age, the muscles around your eyes loosen up. That's why we end up in readers and stuff. So I couldn't wear the contacts anymore. But I've been online and right, Google, Gemini, they say, oh, yeah, they have procedures. And if you want to have contact lenses, you can get them now, dailies even. So I'm pretty excited to see if maybe I can get back into contact lenses. I mean, right, when I was younger, right, I wanted to look good and I didn't like the glasses, had big fly eyes and stuff for glasses. Um, but but you know, I did appreciate that I felt better about myself when I was in contact lenses. I don't know whether or not if it's necessary that I'm perfectly content in wearing my glasses. But at the same time, I have to remember, right? This is going to be the second pair of glasses that I've broken in a matter of 2 years. And for the price that I paid for my glasses, I'm not in a situation to dish out money for a pair of glasses every single year. So I've got to learn to be a little bit more careful with them and to look more at durability than, oh my goodness, it's got like little diamonds on the side. I have to have this pair. Right? We got to take care of ourselves. Uh, Earl says, I dread the dental work though, even though I have the Medicare plan to pay for it. I have a Medicare plan. I'm in Canada. I don't have to pay for my dental. And if I do, it's very minimal. And I lost a 50-year-old silver filling out of one of my teeth. And the food's been getting stuck in it for the past week, 2 weeks now that it's been missing. I have to make an appointment and go to the dentist. And I'd much rather have my teeth pulled than have them fixed, you guys. Like, oh my goodness, I hate the drill machine. I hate metal on my teeth, right? Even when I was in school as a little kid, I had to get special permission from the school board to be able to use a pen in like my early years in school because I just couldn't handle the graphite pencils on paper. It was like nails to chalkboard and right, I wouldn't even attempt to do my work because I just couldn't handle pencils. I still don't like pencils. I still don't use pencils, right? Okay, let's come down to these comments really fast. I love to be home alone with my cats. I spend a lot of time on my own too, but it is important to socialize. So I love that you're here with me, Earl, because this counts. This counts as socializing. This counts because we have to be social to each other. It's a big aspect of being human. And right, those other parts of us, they could care less. But if we're not social with each other, how are we going to hook up with each other? How are we going to have babies, right? How are we going to learn to be kind to others? We'll just be standoffish and scared and, oh, I don't want to talk, right? And then we end up holed up in our apartments or our homes with just our cats. Right? It's a different story if you are interconnecting with others like you're doing right here and you're doing absolutely fine, Earl, right? If that's what all you can do, then that's all you can do. But socializing can also be when you go through the checkout line at the grocery store and you have 30 seconds of practice with the cashier, right? In giving back, just think of it as giving back in service. Even if you have to talk about the weather, that is perfectly good. Lots of people, they don't like the piddly talk, but lots of people, that's all they can do, right? Oh, what a beautiful day today. They want to have a conversation. They want to have a talk, but they think that people are going to think they're stupid or they're not bright or anything. They want to socialize, but they don't know how because they don't have those skills, right? And you're practicing those skills right here with me right now, and with Tammy you're doing amazing, Earl, right? So that is practicing the craft, and it could be better, right? But everything could be better, just in baby steps. So the next time you go to the grocery store, remember we had this conversation, and right, ask the cashier how her day is going, right? You might find yourself in a little 20-second conversation and you might be agitated at the end of it. But when you walk out that door, you could go, oh my goodness. Right? And when you see somebody else do a kindness, to recognize that, just, oh, that was so nice of you. Oh my goodness, that was nice of you. Right? Or even when you're walking by the homeless and you give them a quarter, right? That is socializing. And at the same time, that's providing service, right? And it's treating somebody else like they matter because they matter, right? All those fentanyl addicts are all hunched over like zombies on the sidewalks and stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's in the news. It's in our faces when we go to the grocery store, right? I'm grateful. I don't see it a lot, but I know it's prevalent out there, right? But they matter, right? Those other parts of them saying, oh my goodness, the world needs me. I need to come to the surface. And they come to the surface and they go, oh, frig. And they crash, right? And they crash into their coping mechanisms, right? They're humans coping mechanisms because that's the only way that they can feel like everything is okay, right? So we got to remember you can't just point at people. Ooh, look at them. Oh my goodness, useless piece of poop. And oh my goodness, they're wasting the air. And oh my goodness, right? Don't give them any money. They can get a job. Sometimes they can't get a job. Sometimes they're so broken and they're not able to socialize in any way at all, that's like my sister talking herself out of a triple heart bypass. And that's the truth, right? Okay. Earl says, Tammy, that's not as bad as you think. My dad had all his teeth removed and in months went right back to eating his Saturday night steak with dentures. My dad's dentures, oh my goodness. He used to make us laugh. He used to pop them out of his mouth all the time because just to get a giggle. And because my dad, right, he was woke to some of these ideas. He ate that up like popcorn. He loved the positivity. It was amazing being around my dad because he was so positive. It just brought the positive out on you, right? We give energy. We don't take energy, right? It happens, but we give energy, but that doesn't mean we can't receive energy. And it's in those mutual exchanges at the cashier at the grocery store when you ask the lady, how's your day going? And maybe she's having a crappy day, and maybe you're the person that she needs to express that to, and you could be that sympathetic ear and have something to be proud of when you walk out that door. Oh, Hannah's here too. Hello, Hannah. Hello, dear. I haven't seen you for a couple of weeks. It's nice to see you. Oh my goodness. Thank you for the flower. Um, Tammy says, I used to live in Texas many years ago. I lived there for 17 years. Oh my goodness. Hot. I don't handle the heat very well, right? I'd much rather be at minus 50 than, well, plus 50 is a nice temperature, but uh right, that over 100. Oh my goodness. And if you throw in the humidity on top of that, right? So there's only a certain amount of clothes that you can take off to cool off, right? And you can always put on more clothes in the wintertime. And I know we live in a day and age where there's air conditioning, but lots of people, they don't have air conditioning, right? And it can be quite miserable when you're comfortable. The whole idea is to stay positive, because when you stay positive, positive things happen, right? I woke up to some of these ideas through a positive experience, not a negative experience. And that's the truth. And that's not the norm, right? That's not the norm. Usually you have to crash right down to the bottom. But I woke up in the most amazing, wonderful experience, and then I crashed. But now I'm pulling myself out of that bucket, and it's amazing, you guys. It really is. Baby steps. Oh, Earl's in Houston. Uh, my dad also ate steak and burgers. My dad was a meat and potatoes guy too. And works till age 52 with dentures until he was age 74 and fired. Is that what it says? And fled. Didn't get it. Sorry for the typos. Oh, it's my stupid keyboard. You always got to blame it on something, don't you? You're allowed to be stupid every once in a while. I'm stupid quite often, right? I have those moments, but I allow myself to have those moments because I know the positive moments over overpower the negative ones, and right, I won't make that mistake. And it wasn't, I didn't leave myself open to anything, but as soon as one thought comes into your mind, then another one comes in until you can just absolutely put yourself in a bad mood. And if you put yourself in a bad mood for any length of time, oh my goodness, something or right is going to spot that and go, yum, yum, yum. Okay. Um, okay, you know what? You guys are just yapping, yapping, yapping. A whole bunch of comments today. I'm going to apologize because we're not going to get a card in if I carry on in the comments. Okay, so you guys yap with each other. I'm going to pull a card. 54 powerful words. We're just going to go into it for a few minutes, and then we're going to call it a night, a positive night. And I'm going to give myself a little pat in the back there because, I was kind of nudged to come in and go at this word acceptance in another perspective, even though I hadn't pulled the card. Uh, but I wanted to make sure I did kindness to myself and not just use this word acceptance to point out my mistakes and my bad experiences and what I'm getting wrong. Like, right, right. And that's the first thing we do is we start doing that to ourselves and in coming into a perspective to say, hey, epigenetically, we just pass this stuff down from one generation to the next. And my dad got it wrong. The human plays a big role in this. I have no intentions of coming back as a one-celled amoeba and starting over. I'm going to work with what I've got. I'm going to be the example so that other people can pick up that baton and start working on it too. It's not meaning that it has to be done yesterday. Baby steps, just chip away at it, digest it, go slow, figure it out for yourself, and feel good for that. right? And be the example for others. Okay, you guys, here we go. Just gonna hold it up here. I'll turn my head and pull the card. Just so you guys know. It makes me nervous, you guys. I don't want this word acceptance. I don't want this word community, but if it shows up, it shows up and I have to work with it, right? Okay, this is the card tonight. What can I say about that? Has to be my first perspective. And the first one is, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You guys, what an amazing community. A little community. And look at my comments. Look at you guys in there. Look at you guys all connecting with me, connecting with each other, and me connecting with you. That we're all the examples for each other, right? That we're all human. We're all human, and we cannot forget the human community. Oh, the human community, because none of the other communities can work without that community, right? It can't. It just can't. We put so much work into it, hundreds of thousands of years, right? Evolution has been going millions of years in some form. We may have been swinging from trees or something, but somehow, right? Someone or something was creative and found a way to lead us to where we're at right now. And it's in building that human community, right? As well as those other parts of us, right? That is important. It takes all kinds to make the world, but it takes all kinds to make the world, right? I know, Tammy. We got the card again. What did I tell you? Right? This word comes up every week. And I think, if I'm correct, Tammy, you can correct me. I think this is the second time this week that we had this word community. I don't know. Big red brick upside my head. We'll come at it in a different way tomorrow. But I think this is a good start. I think it's even relatable to the conversation that we had tonight, right? We can't disregard the human community, right? We just can't. And it happens all the time. And it's being allowed to happen. And other people think because they're the king of the hill that they are the king of the hill, right? But to each one of us, right? My dad was the king of his own castle. I'm the king of my own castle, right? But I am only responsible for my thoughts, my actions, and my emotions, and being the example for others, right? In that process of moving forward. Okay, you guys. You guys, we got that word community game. This is just gonna look so silly in my thumbnail that every single thumbnail says acceptance or community. Oh my goodness. You guys saw, right? I wasn't even looking. I just pulled the card. It is what it is. You guys, have a great night. We were at it for a little while. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.